This is our first podcast. My name is Fike. This is Logan.
Yo, I'm Logan.
If anybody's watching this, if ever goes out, the odds are you probably already know who we are. I'm probably a friend or family member. Probably Logan's mom.
Yeah, my mom is definitely going to be the first viewer of this for sure.
I mean, my parents would probably like to watch it too, but they don't really speak English. I want to talk about how this podcast started. I feel like I find myself a lot, and Logan will agree with this, just talking about anything and everything. And just sometimes we just be going into like some type of conversation, and I'm like, man, like, you're so right. And one time, I think it was after a breakup, where we were just outside, and we were talking about something, and I was like, I want to record this. And I started recording, and then later on, like a week or two later, I played it back to Logan, and then we're like, man, that guy's right.
And I was that guy. I was listening to it. I was like, that guy is smart as fuck.
Yeah. And yeah, a little bit about yourself, like introduce yourself.
So, I mean, like I said, I'm Logan. If you're watching this, you probably know pretty much the rundown of who both of us are. But a deeper kind of dive into who I am right now as a person, because hopefully this goes further, and the idea of myself that I'm presenting to you guys in the future will be a lot more different, hopefully, because that's the goal as a human, to be much different than who you were in the past. But as of right now, I'm somebody who lives in Austin. I work almost every day to get where I want to be. I talk to about 5 to 10 people who are really close to me. Fike is probably 1 or 2 on that list. I sleep, I eat, occasionally work out when I'm in the self-grind mode. But yeah, that's who I am.
I am in the same boat in a sense that I am doing something that takes up a lot of space, a lot of time in my life that will eventually lead me to where I want to be. I go to school in Austin. I work 20 hours a week maybe, and I would say I'm probably more social than Logan, and he'll agree, but we're kind of just, I don't know, just going through the motions. We like traveling a lot.
Yeah, we do travel a lot. I'm trying to hit... Fike doesn't think it's probably like the best to set a goal on what you do with your traveling, which honestly truly is probably correct, because most of like these experiences should be spontaneous. But with that being said, yeah, I'm trying to hit one different place every month of 2023, because this has been like it's been a special year for me in terms of like realizing a lot of things. And a lot of the reason I'm realizing those things is like traveling with the ones I love, because I feel like you really do oftentimes get tunnel vision where you live, because 90% of the time the values of the people around you are all shared by pretty much everybody. So unless you're traveling, getting different perspectives and talking to others, you're pretty much like, you have that small-minded mentality of like where you're from, and there's nothing wrong with being like in touch with where you're from, but I think it's definitely important to get out there.
Yeah, I think it also kind of creates an echo chamber where you're kind of like, I mean, I think I broke down the definition of that analogy to someone who didn't understand it, and sometimes like we tend to think people know the things that we're talking about. It's like, what does echo chamber mean? Essentially, like if you're in a room like this, actually, there's probably some echo in our voice right now. You say something that comes back to you. So when you're in an echo chamber, it's like whatever idea you put out there comes back to you. You hear back one way or another.
You'll hear exactly about what you were talking about with somebody. You'll hear the exact same idea reciprocated, because chances are you might have had some type of like influence from somebody else around you who also influenced somebody else. So it's like you stay where you are a lot of the time, and you oftentimes feel like your ideas start becoming less original. And what I've noticed when I travel, a lot of those ideas become more original, because you're tapping into a whole nother mindset of another echo chamber. So it's like intermingling those echo chambers, like you said.
Yeah.
And I think while the purpose of that, which we talk about a lot about that, like what thoughts serve a real function in your reality and what thoughts are just thoughts that serve no function in reality. But that function is there because it kind of helps you socially.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people are impressed by that, which
Yeah.
maybe impressing people with your social originality may not be the best thing, but it does serve some functionality.
I think when it comes to that, being in touch with where you're from, I'm realizing, and this is something I definitely like got from Logan as well, or even people around me. Like, I was born in Turkey, lived there 8 years, lived in Morocco for 6 years, moved here when I was 14, lived in San Antonio for 4 years, now I'm here. All that being said, when somebody asks me where I'm from, my immediate answer is
San Antonio.
San Antonio.
And I'm always a motherfucker like who hears him. I don't have these conversations with him anymore because it's like, it's my best friend, but how many times can you hear somebody tell you that they know like 5 languages and that they're from San Antonio? So usually when this conversation is happening, like he's like probably like 5 feet away from me because it's the same people we know, but he's just far. And then I'll always interject and I'll be like, well, he's actually from Turkey.
Yeah.
Because it's like, is he from San Antonio?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about taking pride in where you're from, not necessarily because you hate it or you love it, but I definitely like from being around you, I've like learned to take pride in that. But I wanted to talk about the story of how we met. I do think it's beautiful. You start with your point of view of like maybe like a month. What were you doing in that month before coming to UT? Your first impression, what led up to it, and then how did it evolve into what it is? And then that's the start point, and then we can cut it out maybe when you accepted your bid for Lambda.
Okay.
It's a pretty long time frame, but
damn that. Okay, well honestly, we reflect on this a lot with each other and a lot of the people around us, but I think it's interesting that you kind of included to say like where were you at a month before?
Yeah.
So like this might even be new stuff for you.
Yeah, I mean, I am interested to hear like, and it kind of in a way it's good to set up the stage so you're like, okay, like this is where I am, this is who I am, this is where I come from, and then this is what happened, which is like it kind of gives you a good contrast of like how that story evolved to be.
Yeah, honestly, I fuck with that because like I feel like we can easily tell for the podcast the things that we both know about each other that we've heard millions of times, but kind of saying the things that we've told each other millions of times that we love to hear repeatedly because they're great stories, but adding like a little dash of like extra, which is hard to do with us because learning new things about each other,
facts,
it's kind of hard considering how close we've gotten, but I feel like this will like kind of give a new perspective.
Let's hear it.
Right, so a month before coming in to Austin, so I'm coming in, and the funny thing is I actually met Fike like a week before we started class at UT Austin as freshmen.
Meet in person, by the way.
Yeah, meet in person, like, cause I guess I can give you that detail too. So beforehand, I'd been in Miami for Rolling Loud with my friends, and my car broke down. I drove 26 hours across the country to go there. My car broke down. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I posted about it, and literally the only person to swipe up was some random guy I met in like some UT friends group chat.
For context, I'm sure this happens with any school. Before school starts, like let's say it's class of 2025 coming into UT in the year of 2021, there's pages and group me's and patios, like all these different social media apps that kind of help people meet each other, and then that's how me and Logan met. And apparently we had talked at some point.
No, honestly, he doesn't even realize this.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think I've ever told him this before. But maybe I have. Maybe this memory definitely won't catch you off guard because I know you remember it.
Yeah.
But literally the leader, this guy is, and like I literally never gas anybody up until I realize who they really are. But we had a group chat set up with like, I would say 20 people coming into UT. And some of those people I still know till this day from afar. And they're pretty like, they're doing impressive things for themselves. So like, this was just a group chat filled with people who objectively created their own little universes within UT and are like, shit, like as fucked up, like they're the king or queen of their universe, and you can see it from afar. Like you can see it, you know who's doing good for themselves.
Everybody's the main character in their story, you know.
Well, not everybody, but every universe has a main character. And
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
This group chat had a lot of those, and this guy he like set it up, and he organized like this FaceTime call.
Wait, you were not FaceTime?
Yes, I was in it, bro. I was in it.
I didn't know you. I
genuinely didn't know you were on that FaceTime.
So he organized it, and like the whole time, it was him. Like everybody was shy. Like everybody was just trying to play the cool guy. 'Cause, you know, everybody's the cool guy.
Yeah.
Everybody's the quiet guy who's just sitting there on FaceTime, like trying to see what other people are gonna say and let other people like kind of, I guess, screw themselves over by like coming off weird or.
Yeah.
This guy, he did not care. He took complete charge of like those 15 to 20 people and like just straight up started asking questions and getting everybody to like share.
Yeah.
And from that moment,
I didn't know you were in that FaceTime.
Yeah, that's crazy. I kind of barely remember that. And from that moment, I just had this view of this guy. I was like, look, I may never be like homies with this guy just like out of like result of like who I'm with, who I'm around, all that stuff. But all I know is like he's cool as fuck. And like that's all I need to know for like moving forward. Anyways, months go by, we don't really talk. He helps me. He tries to help me.
Okay, yeah.
He calls me while I'm in Miami and my car broke down. He tells me that he has friends out there in Miami who can help me. I end up not needing the help. I end up getting back.
You were in Orlando, right? Because your car broke down in Orlando.
No, it broke down like 3 hours outside of Miami in like some nowhere town.
Okay.
And that's why his friends couldn't help because they were like 2 to 3 hours out.
Okay, that's what it was. Okay.
So, anyways, that moves on. The fact that he was the only one to reach out in the first place and call me like stood out to me. I was like I wouldn't have expected anybody to help me. So just the fact that he was trying to offer that kind of meant something. So again, it was like the same thing as when he organized that FaceTime call. I was like, shit, probably will never be close to this guy, but I know he's cool as fuck. Like I'm gonna keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Move forward. He hits me up out of nowhere. My second day in Austin. I have nobody. I have no family. All my family lives in El Paso, 8 hours drive away. No friends, nothing. Like I literally come to this new city with no person in sight who's like there for me.
Like a familiar face.
Exactly. And so I just get this random text like, "Hey bro, I got back from LA. I need a ride. Like you don't have to." Because I think he kind of knew that it's like a weird request to just randomly.
Yeah.
But then I was like, can I really afford to say no to this right now? Like, I have nobody here. Like
what was there to lose?
Exactly. So I was just like, you know what? Yeah, I got you, bro. I pull up. I pick him up. And we go get Chick-fil-A. We talk for like a couple hours.
Fact.
I still remember that. And then...
Okay. I'm going to make sure that's recording real quick. I'm sure that's... I'm going to make sure it's recording. Usually the red light is on. And if it is, we'll just cut like this part of the video.
Okay.
Okay. It is recording.
Okay.
I don't know. For some reason, this is a flash. The red light on this side. Okay. I don't know that once.
No, you're good.
Okay, I'm just gonna come back here and then. What was the last thing you said?
Okay. Our bad. We were just trying to see if everything was recording since it's our first
so
podcast.
There's a cut there.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's raw though.
Okay, it is.
But anyway, so
we talked for a couple hours at Chick-fil-A.
And then we just go our separate ways. I'm like, alright, I'm for sure hanging with this guy. I end up having this sickness where my throat ends up closing up. And like I have it for a day or two. And it's really bad. Like I'm struggling. Like I'm really struggling bad. But I'm like, I'll get over it. Like I get throat infections sometimes. Like it is what it is. So then, not to get graphic, but I just start throwing up one of these days. And that
it was the day after we had Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was a day, like exactly immediately the day after.
Yeah. So I was just there throwing up like with my airways like closed literally by like 80%, like, and just throwing up out of that little 20% that was left.
Okay.
And I could not.
Not to get graphic.
Not to get graphic, but yeah, that's what was happening, and like I couldn't breathe, and in this new city, no friends, no family, and a slight interaction with some random guy off Instagram. I'm like, what are the options that I have here?
Yeah.
Like, suffer here and like have to call an Uber to go to the hospital, because this is where I was at. I was not in like sleep it off. Like I was in a hospital mode, and it was like get an Uber to the hospital and have to figure everything out by myself, or text the one person I've had a minute, which in the long run I realized it wasn't minute. It meant a lot more, but a minute like interaction with to come help me. So I texted him. I'm like, hey, can you come?
Oh no, he asked me if I can go get groceries for him from Walmart.
Yeah.
He said, "Can you go get me something from Walmart?" And at first I was like, I mean, I'll go help you out, but it was just
like,
odd
give me some ground
request.
beef.
Yeah, get some. Remember, this is a reference probably no one will understand, but remember when we were in Colorado and Naya sent me a grocery list,
Yeah.
and it had like, so we went on a trip, and it was like 16 of us in Colorado a couple months back, and doing a small grocery run. I'm like, hey guys, let me know if y'all want anything. My friend, she sends me like an 18 item list.
Yeah.
The most specific thing on there was vodka sauce for some pasta she was gonna do.
Oh,
Anyways,
yeah.
cutting back, Logan is sick. He's asking me to go get something for him from Walmart, and then
So those things that I needed him to get were medicine, because I was still in a mindset where like, look, I literally just got here. I'm not trying to go to the hospital first 3 days in Austin. Like, that's not where I'm at. Like, I just need some medicine. I cannot breathe or like get up out of my bed or off the ground next to the toilet, not to be graphic, but you know, it's
not
happening.
to be graphic, but like 80% of the way I was clogged out. I couldn't breathe and I was spitting blood, guys. But not
Okay, not the blood. But yeah, I mean, it was rough. Like, I just kind of highlight where I was in order for like this situation
to
to
set
kind
up to make sense.
Yeah, exactly. So he comes, whatever, blah blah blah, fix myself up. We come to the terms that we come to the terms of what I just told you, that this was not just like a Walmart medicine issue, and that I needed to go somewhere. So he, after literally 2 days of knowing me, said, I'm going to take you to the hospital. We end up having like some workarounds. Blah, blah, blah. We end up at the hospital. He's there with me. He leaves for about 3 to 4 hours once the doctors admit me. He doesn't leave until he can make sure that the doctors admit me, because my throat is so clogged to the point where words cannot come out of my mouth.
Yeah, like the way I ended up leaving was I went to the restaurant, because I remember we're in the lobby, we're watching the X-Men movies, and I remember you saying these are like my favorite Marvel franchise, which like X-Men has its own universe, but as a Marvel franchise, it's like the best like franchise.
To me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure some people, even probably a little fewer than you would like to, some people probably do agree with it.
Yeah.
Either way, so we're in the lobby, and then I go to the restroom, and I come back, and Logan isn't there anymore, and turns out he's admitted. So I was like, oh, like I'm not gonna like.
He's good.
Yeah. And then.
So he ends up leaving. I end up getting admitted, getting taken care of, but I feel like where the next part of the story leads to is when you leave, it sets up like a major thing. So
Okay.
like when you left me for those 5 hours, which isn't a lot, like, I mean, leaving me permanently is justifiable for a person you've known for 2 days.
Yeah.
But he only leaves 5 hours. In those
Okay.
5 hours, what happened?
I think I should give some context as to why like I was like asking Logan to pick me up from the airport. So I'll kind of start back there and then jump to. I didn't really do anything noticeable within that time frame where you were sick, or I mean you already explained.
Well, with Melissa.
Yeah. So I was over the summer. I texted another guy I've met through one of those Instagram group chats to travel with me. Shout out to JB. Like we literally saw him tonight. Like I still see him. It's been 2 years. I texted him and I was like, hey, like, do you wanna do you want to go to LA with me? And he was like, yeah, like, let's do it. So then we go to LA together, and we're staying with a friend I met through Facebook like 4 years ago. Louis, shout out to Louis as well. And then we stayed there, great trip. I get back, and in my head, I'm on this train of doing spontaneous things with people I don't know. So then I land, and I realize you're in Austin. I'm like, fuck it, like, fuck that shit. I'll give him a call too. So I call Logan, and then that's the reason why I called a random person to pick me up from the airport. So then all that happens. He's in the hospital, and then I come back from the restroom. He's gone. So then I'm like, fuck, like, and then I feel like there's a lot of pre-context. So another friend that I met through one of those groups, his name was Omer. He's English, and he I had picked him up from the airport before I flew, a couple of weeks back, and he was like, hey, like, one of my friends is having a get-together at, like, one of these rooftop apartments. And now, like, having lived in Austin for a while, like, rooftop apartment is, like, sure, like, every apartment has a rooftop. But at the time, it has a pool, view of Austin, rooftop.
Everything was just, like, so much more impressive as freshmen, like...
You're like, oh, wow, Torrid. And now it's like, fuck.
Like, I come from El Paso, some border town, like... Seeing all these like people living at rooftops, like with pool, like it's like an unforeseen world for me.
Exactly. I mean, even for me, I went to high school in San Antonio, and prior to that, lived in like third world countries. So even for me, I'm like, man, like this is New York. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, facts.
Anyways, my friend invites me to that party or get together. And we're there, and Melissa, probably one of the like loveliest girls I've met. She's amazing, and like at this point, she's probably like a sister to both of us, like Ella and Melissa. She's maybe a little tipsy, talking about how she loves Princess and the Frog, and how she always wanted to go to New Orleans. And in the beginning of the summer, I went to New Orleans with Louis, the same guy whose house I stayed at in LA, and I guess, like, if you haven't done, like, a long drive before, 8 hours might sound a lot, especially for people that don't live in the United States. But 8 hours here is, like, not that much. Yeah. And knowing that, like, such a great city like New Orleans is an 8-hour drive, I'm like, oh, you haven't seen Princess and the Frog? Like, let's go to New Orleans. Like, let's do it. And she's like, yeah? And I'm like, yeah, like, let's do it. Why not? Fuck it, like, let's do it. And then... we hang out, and I talk to Omer, I talk to like a couple other people, have a good time. Then I get back to the hospital to pick Logan up. But at that point, like, it's like, you can explain how it was for you, like, when they were, you know.
Well, yeah, so he ends up, like, I'm telling you, he just went out to party. He went out to party with all these people. Got that proposition set up for going to New Orleans. He didn't have to come back. Like, he set me up for all I needed. Like, he set me up, made sure... He was making sure that the doctors were getting my insurance and getting because I couldn't talk. And, like, he knew that. So he was helping me get everything set up. He left me in a great position. He left me with everything settled, blah, blah, whatever. Still came back. Like, he didn't need to come back.
Damn, bro, I sound like a great guy.
I mean, you are a great guy, bro. Like, honestly, you know me. I don't gas anybody up.
Yeah.
Like, if I gas somebody up, you know it's good, and every person I have gas up to you ends up needing the part. Because I don't do that at all.
Yeah.
So, he ends up coming back still. And in that moment that he came back, essentially what they said was like, you have a buildup of like pus within your throat, and the only way to get it out is we need to get a needle this big, stick it like in your mouth, down your throat. But we need to stick that in your mouth and like stab your throat from the inside and extract everything that's in there. Otherwise, like, you know, like, I mean, it'll end up being fatal. Yeah. Like, you won't breathe. It'll just keep growing. Yeah. Like, you'll be screwed. The infection will spread. I was like, okay, let's do it. So they numb my throat. They stick the needle down and they like extract whatever they need to extract. It turns out that at the Austin public hospital,
yeah, the main one,
they told me that the most they had, I got 24 cc's of pus and blood extracted from my throat. They told me the most they had ever seen was 4.
Yeah.
4 cc's.
Yeah.
The doctor there.
Yeah.
So like
She was laughing. She was like, "Oh my god, like this is insane."
24
She just kept
cc's.
going, yeah.
She was like, we have to fill another syringe full of this. Like, how are you okay right
Yeah.
now? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and we're just saying this to emphasize and highlight the severity of his health at the time.
Or just honestly express a moment that, like, I mean, how long that girl's been a doctor?
Yeah.
6 times the amount of the
max.
most she's ever seen. Like, I don't know. It was crazy. A crazy moment. He was there, seeing him just get all
it was
this
like
shit.
3:30 in the morning in a hospital with a guy I met 2 days ago. Like damn.
Yeah. So, whatever. I get better as soon as they extract that complete 180. I turn physically, I'm fine. Everything. He's like, I know. Like, that was our past 3 days. Me meeting you randomly, me picking you up, then going to the hospital with you and going through that. Do you want to go to New Orleans in a day? I'm just like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, but yeah, like, let's go.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah.
And
Let's go.
then, so I asked him, right? And then I was like, okay, like Logan is cool with it. And then the girl Melissa who told me, the next day she texted me. She's like, so are we still doing New Orleans? And in my head, like prior to college, I haven't really been around drunk people. So my perception was, oh, dude, she was so hammered last night. She probably, like, I saw drinking around, so I was like, oh, man, like, she's done.
She's
She
not
doesn't
gonna
know what
care.
she's talking about.
Yeah.
But the fact that she texted me back, I was like, damn, like, she actually, like, does want to, like, do it. And I'm the type of person, like, if I'm talking the talk, I'm going to walk the walk. Like,
you'll see how far they carry it, and you'll carry it even farther till it just
Exactly.
becomes reality.
Exactly. And I was
Yeah.
like, if we're doing this, is doing this. So, for perspective, I met Logan Tuesday. He picked me up from the airport. Wednesday, I took him to the hospital. Thursday morning, we booked an Airbnb in New Orleans. Probably one of the nicest Airbnbs I've stayed at to this day.
Yeah.
And then Friday morning, we left to drive to New Orleans. And we were there for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We come back Sunday evening. And then either Monday or Tuesday, we had school.
Yeah.
And that was the first week in Austin. So, if you were to summarize that trip in like a few sentences, like how would you describe it?
Because I don't really kind of explaining trips is hard because I'm so busy like experiencing them. But I would just say, Bourbon Street was crazy.
French Quarter.
Bourbon Street's in the French Quarter. Crazy time. Kind of bonded with all those people. Came back just like, keep in mind, came ready to go to classes, not knowing what the fuck college was gonna have in store for me.
Yeah.
And this is apparently what it had in store. Meeting a guy, and this being our first week.
Yeah.
Like everything that was just said, like I don't know how long that was. Could like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That entire story that you just heard that could probably be stretched to an hour long. First week
Yeah. First week of college.
of friendship.
And well, that, and also like usually when you go on a trip, so this is the reality. Right? Like you're in a reality, you go on a trip, and in a way you're kind of on a high. You're in Colorado, you're in South Padre, whatever it may be. You come back to that reality, but for both Logan and I, our reality wasn't set. When we first moved to Austin,
His was a little... Alright, so sorry for the cut. It was a little technical difficulties, but essentially what I was saying is that like his world was a little more established. He had done a couple more trips spontaneously, but for me, I didn't do like any of that. All the trips I had been on were like family trips. I think I had done one other trip with my friend, which is kind of relatable, but it was also a family trip. He kind of like joined me on that.
yeah,
So for me, it was really like a leap of faith, but it was like, okay, I picked him up and he stayed with me for all these 2 days, like taking care of me while I was like in dire straits with nobody. Like I had the money. Well, I didn't really have the money, but I had a way to get the money to go on this trip with him. And I was like, you know what? If it's within my capabilities to go on a trip with this guy that is like obviously shown me like he has my trust to go on that trip, I'm going to do it. So that's just what ended up happening.
yeah. And kind of to like allude back to what I was saying earlier, like for both of us and maybe for more for you than myself, like before, like let's say if you go on a trip right now, you come back and you go back to the routine you were in, but because that trip was such a high, and then you come back and there's no like reality really, because it's first week of school, you're in a new city, and like, so it's kind of like, this is your reality when you get back, and then when you come back, you have a reality check, you're like, man, like, gotta get back to it. But then like, we started here, and then we came back, and it's kind of like, oh shit, like, this is college, and like, how, like, it was kind of confusing for myself and him, I'm sure as well, like,
Yeah.
a little harder. And at the time, for some more context, I was approached during orientation over the summer to join a fraternity, and I'm a conservative Muslim. And not conservative politically, just a Muslim that's like conservative who believes in traditional values. And I don't drink, I don't smoke, like I don't do anything like that. And at that point I hadn't like been clubbing or anything like that. So anyways, I'm approached to join a fraternity, and like I watched like Neighbors, like with Zac Efron and like
and Dave Franco.
Yeah. So that's my perception of fraternity, like people making their dick molds to auction it at a sorority event or whatever that plot line was. So being approached, I was like, what I look like, fuck that. But like, shout out to Josh and Carson, like they were able to recruit me, and I was like, man, I guess I'm gonna do it. And then I brought Logan to an event, and
I got, like, transparency to me is like pretty much always gonna be the key. Whether I'm here talking on a mic or to my friend, like anytime I choose to talk, which might not be often, I'm gonna be transparent. I was wasted, and they were trying to like, well, it was more Fike. Fike was like, you should join. I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna join. Like I don't care, I'm joining. And then Fike was like, okay, do you really want to join? And I was like, I feel like if he was my friend before then, he like, and I said, yeah, fuck, I'm gonna join. He would just be like, shut up.
Yeah.
But because he didn't know me, it's like, how is he supposed to know what kind of person I am? I mean, I spontaneously went on a trip with him to New Orleans. Like,
yeah.
How far was he supposed to push it to think, like, how spontaneous I am? So I don't think he knew. He was just like, okay, well, if you're saying that, then yeah. So he goes to get the guy who is, like...
in charge of recruitment.
Yeah. And that guy's like, hey, here's my number. I'll help you join. And I'm still wasted. I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. Long story short, like, I feel like there's really not a lot you can really say about how a person convinces you when you make, like, a drunken decision, but it ended up happening, and, like, I don't regret it at all.
Yeah, and for context, like, we're filming this. We're college students, right? Like, we don't have a studio to film this. So this is freshman year. We end up... I'll just give some context for fraternity-related terms. When you're when you rush a fraternity is when you go to their events, and then if the guys like you enough, they give you a bid, which is an invitation to join the fraternity. And then once you get an invitation, you become an associate, and you go through associateship where you do whatever that is deemed right. And once you do that, in the end of the semester, you get initiated, and then you become an active member of the fraternity. So we did all that freshman year, and there was a point where they were asking if anyone wanted to live at the house, and we don't own the house, so they were kind of saying, hey, like, if no one moves in, like, we're gonna lose the house, and you're not gonna have a house to live in, and how are we gonna be in a fraternity if you don't have a house? And not that it was guilt tripping, but it was kind of like laying out the facts.
Yeah.
And I like looked at Logan, I was like, trying to, and he was like, fuck, he's like, not really. And we ended up saying yes, and then we got a room that we didn't really want, but it ended up being like the best room. So we share a room, and then there's supposed to be someone else living here. Something last minute happened.
The room that we're recording in.
Yeah, this is the room where we're recording. It's supposed to be his room, but something happened to where he couldn't stay here. So, but he still like is legally liable to pay rent. So I was like, hey, like, can I use your room? And this setup is like, I do photography on the side, like LinkedIn headshots. That's why it looks so weird. We're like, we didn't make this backdrop to where it looks like vertical, but like it doesn't really fit to the horizontal frame we have set up. But that's just some context. That's how me and Logan met, and then ever since then, okay, let's do a count of the trips we've been on. Okay. We don't count interstates. We don't count
Any trip.
any trip is a trip. New Orleans, Atlanta.
Okay.
Okay. OU. Well, this year you came to OU.
Was the gap between Atlanta and OU empty?
Well, not from all the way Atlanta to this year's OU. There's definitely stuff in between.
Yeah.
So New Orleans, Atlanta. Where else did we go together?
Dude.
Rolling Loud.
Okay, so Miami.
Okay, Miami.
Atlanta.
Well, I already said Atlanta. Miami. We went to Colorado twice.
Yeah.
And then he's been to my home multiple times.
So San Antonio.
San
He's been to
Antonio.
mine. So El Paso, which is more of a trip. It's 8 hours from
Yeah.
where we're at.
Compared to like an hour drive to San Antonio. I think that's 7. And then SPI.
Okay.
Is it? And OU.
Well, you already counted it.
No, I didn't count it
Okay.
in the beginning. And then, so that's 9. And I'm pretty sure we're missing like... Fuck, what are we missing? Oh, the road trip.
Oh, the road trip.
Yeah, so we road tripped like from Texas up to Wyoming, and we saw like the Zion and like all these different parts of the country. What else? Let's see. Yeah, we're pulling up some.
Yeah, New Orleans, Colorado, Miami, then
The road trip.
five different states, then
5
OU,
states, OU, and then Colorado again.
then Oregon.
Oh, facts. We were in Oregon last month or 2 months ago.
Uh-huh.
That's true. So Oregon.
And then Raleigh, North Carolina.
Oh yeah, and then we're just so that's 11 trips.
Yeah.
11 trips that I count. Well, I also count road trip as one trip, even though we went to like 5 states. Yeah, and then. Yeah, I mean, what is it? 10, 11 states in 2 years, or 11 trips in 2 years. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, honestly, not planned. I can tell you every single one of them was spontaneous.
Spontaneous one broke, like when I say broke, like and then of last summer, I literally ran out of money for food. I had to ask my girlfriend at the time for money, like, which is like kind of embarrassing to admit, but like real shit.
We're college students taking 11 trips. Like,
yeah, let's be real, guys.
There's
like,
college
right.
students taking 0 trips who can't have food, and it's just how it is. There's no shame about it.
And I think it's kind of, I think I would say like, compared to the general public, both me and Logan are more financially literate than an average person.
Facts.
And that means managing your money. Credit card's a big thing. Like a lot of the kids I see around me, a lot of them have credit cards, and it's kind of like, man, like, you know, eventually you're gonna need a credit, and then your credit age is gonna be shit. But
facts.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get that covered, and I feel like if you don't cover the basics in the first episode, it's like, when are you gonna cover it? But what I wanted to talk about next was kind of what we were mentioning earlier in the kitchen. The whole thing with people not being receptive to different mindsets.
People not being in what context?
Like contextually, like how we mentioned, like, okay, like, I'm Muslim, I don't drink, I don't smoke, and you'll like attest to this, like, anytime someone hears me not drinking or not smoking or just being straight edge, being sober, their first thought is like, that's insane, that's so crazy. And it's like, you really, like, if someone has a reaction to such a normal statement compared to where I'm from,
that tells me everything I need to know about you, because it's like, well, I feel like it tells me a lot of what I need to know about you. Maybe not everything. There's probably not a blanket statement that can tell you that. But it's like, so the topic of kind of like how you presented it was being like kind of realizing other people's reality. And it's like, I think an important skill as a human being is to be receptive, like he put it first, to other people's reality, or receptive to the possibility of those realities. Because if you don't, like those people who hear him say, like I told him, I was like, look, it's like impressive anecdotally that you're sober for life off everything. But honestly, there's probably like, I would say like 20 to 30% of the world's population
Yeah.
that is sober off of everything. And it's like, yes, to those 70%, it seems like this foreign thing because they surround themselves with people like themselves. But 20 to 30% of the human population is like,
2 billion.
yeah, like it's a lot.
Yeah.
So realistically, if there's 2 billion people on Earth and you're surprised to meet somebody, that kind of just shows how receptive you are to the possibility that there's 2 billion people on Earth who live like that.
Yeah. And
Like,
I think that's kind of what you were alluding at when you said that tells me what I need to know about you, in a sense that, bro, like, if
You're
you're
not open.
surprised that someone, one of 2 billion, does X, Y, and Z.
then you don't have tunnel vision. You have like fucking like straw vision. Like
Straw
you're
vision.
looking through a straw, and your perspective of life is like those who are around you who share those beliefs. But there's 2 billion people who live this way, that is making you freak out at somebody's way of living. And it's like, yes, honor them for something that you couldn't do yourself, but
Or
if you're
chose not to do, maybe.
or chose, but if you're surprised, it's probably because you were never capable of it in the first place, and that's why it surprises you.
Yeah.
And that's coming from somebody who also drinks and also smokes. So it's not, or
It's not like
drink,
condescending. statement.
drink and smoke, because it's like not to condescend, because I'm the same way. But when you told me this thing in our first week of meeting each other, I was like, wow, like that's cool.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, and this is like kind of
The common reaction.
reenactment of like most people. What? You don't drink? Like it's
not
like,
even smoke.
yeah, not even smoke, not once, not even when you go out. Like just like they can't believe it. They refuse to believe that not a drop of alcohol has entered his system.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Okay. To be fair,
One accidental drop.
accidental.
because of-
Someone had told me there was no alcohol, knowing my background, knowing I don't drink, so trusting them, I
she
took a
was
sip.
she was tipsy herself.
Yeah, so I mean, not to put any blame on her. I mean, if it's accidental, it's fine. But yeah, generally speaking, that's like perception. And another perspective of this that like I think is interesting is and it's gonna be so out of pocket, like cucks. Okay, cucks, dude. So like, and I am one of those people who's receptive to look at other perspectives or what have you. But man, like, in what reality do you like watching your significant other, like Sneeko, right? He had like that whole thing. He got his girlfriend get fucked right next to him in the bed. And in what reality is that okay?
Okay, so see, like
There's an exception, guys.
no. So like the social idea that I'm trying to present is that like you may be sitting next to somebody and they tell you like, yeah, I like watching my wife get fucked.
That's
And now
insane.
internally you may be like, wow, like how
In what
how-
possibility?
how is this like how why do you like, but you process that within a millisecond and you just really say like in that millisecond you're like, oh, okay, but there's probably a shitload of guys who like that. So him telling me right now isn't that even crazy. Like there's like a whole OnlyFans like porn category around it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
there's fucking furries. There's furries that use
Yeah.
it. Like, let's be real. There's people that are into. But I think the basic concept of, all right, like I might not fully agree with where this person's coming from, and I might not ever see myself getting there, but
But if you tell me that,
it's like
you're just gonna be like, oh wow, like how was it?
But oh no, I'm not asking you that.
Personally, I am, because I'm like, it's
How, I
weird.
would be like, how would it make you feel, or like.
Or something like, or how was it is the same as how was it made, because
Okay,
they
fair.
because it's like now if you're like, what, that is great, like just
Oh man, you suck, man. That sucks ass.
yeah.
Yeah, or I mean, or like polyamorous relationships, which coming from a Muslim, it could seem like kind of a contradicting statement, but with the limited knowledge of Islam that I have, I think in the South American culture, Hispanic culture as well, when someone thinks of a Muslim, one of the first thoughts that comes to their mind, maybe after terrorist, is, oh, you can have multiple wives. Like I remember my first or second rejection in high school was a girl I had a crush on. And I would like to think she had a crush on me, but I'm not sure. And then she told me, well, my mom said I can't date you because Muslims are allowed to have 4 wives, and she's Mexican. So I was like, oh. I was like, well, I been to Saudi Arabia, lived in Turkey, Morocco. Like, I've never met anyone who did that. And anyways, I'm kind of like deriving away from the point. What I was gonna say is polyamorous relationships as well. In what world does that work? Like, even in Islam, it's kind of like definition of marriage at the time was different in a sense that you would marry someone maybe to protect them, and if you have the facilities to separate your wives and treat them all equally, which is like nearly impossible. Like, if you buy one something, you have to buy it to all of them. You have 4, you have to buy 4 Chanel bags. Like, if you are capable of doing that and separate them and spend your time, money, and efforts and love separated 4 ways, then that's fine. But then the modern definition of polyamory is more like orgies in a house.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different. But in what world is that possible? I don't know.
In what world? But it's also like if somebody told me, I'd be like, oh.
Yeah. Oh, funny story. I actually met a poly couple.
Oh.
I don't know if I ever told you this.
No.
So, a friend of mine, Freddie.
Just exposing him.
No, that's not. It's not.
Oh.
It's not Freddie.
Oh.
So, he was hosting some people that like reached out to him online, like some couch surfing app or Facebook groups or whatever it may be. They're a Finnish couple. They're from Finland, and they come and they wanted to go to Enchanted Rock. It's in Fredericksburg. And they needed a ride, and Freddie was like, hey, like, I'm busy today, but my buddy Fike is from Austin, maybe he can take you guys. I take them, and it's an hour and a half, 2 hour drive, and like the Enchanted Rock is kind of like a good hike, like an hour. And as I'm talking to them, they're like, yeah, we're actually poly. I'm like, well, the exact same thing. Millisecond, you process that information, you're like, okay, what the fuck, you fucking, okay? And then you're like, oh, how is it? And the reaction is they're in a long distance relationship, so when they're away from each other they fuck, but when they're together they're mono or
mono is one.
Mono, like as in like they're in a
monogamous
relationship.
Yeah.
I had the right prefix, but so I don't know. There's different types of people all around the world.
Yeah, and on it, like if you're instinctually surprised, it's like let it be, but just realize that like you're probably surprised because you're looking at life through a much smaller lens. Because I would say like I'm 20 now, and I probably spent like 80 to 90% of my life looking through that peephole, to where like a lot of the things people would tell me about their lives, like if I talked to myself or if I talked to Fike like 2-3 years ago, like I would just have the reaction that I like not look down upon, but would like advise people to find some way to get away from. I'd have that reaction like, what, you did this, you did that.
Oh man, you really like shouldn't be,
or not even you shouldn't be, but like you do that. That's crazy. I wish I could stuff. Just being surprised by something kind of just shows that like. Now if somebody's like, I just bought like a $50 million Bugatti, and you're surprised by that.
That's fair.
Yeah, it like probably doesn't say much about you, because like who's really just buying a $50 million Bugatti on a daily basis?
Yeah.
But if it's like something that billions of people are doing, and it just happens to be that you place yourself in a scenario where most of the people share your ideals, you're probably not open-minded enough. And it's not bad. It just means get into the world, figure out more stuff. Yeah.
Travel more. And I as someone who didn't grow up in the States, I definitely think anyone from here, and anyone will tell you this, like it's not a hot take, like go out there, maybe live in Africa for a few months, like in Morocco you could live there, or not even live, just travel, see how other people live.
Yeah.
And you come back here and you realize why people say it's like one of the best countries in the world, right? Like you realize that you're like, oh shit, it is fucking great here in a lot of ways. A lot of ways not, but two wrongs don't make a right. Like you just enjoy it for the country as it is. I also wanted to mention like the environment we're placed into right now, like UT Austin. contextually, which most people that are watching this probably like, already know exactly what I'm talking about, because realistically, not that many views. But UT Austin, great school, one of the best in Texas, one of the best in the nation.
The best in Texas, one of the best in the nation.
Okay, yeah, I mean, sure, some people disagree.
I mean, Rice.
Rice, yeah. Or some people claim Texas State is better, which is
Bro.
beyond me. But anyway, so UT Austin, right, great school. You either got in here because you were a transfer, you got capped, which that means you get into the college, but university tells you, hey, go to this other university for a year, and if your GPA is above 3.x, then you can come to ours. Or you were top 6% of your public school, and you get automatically admitted to the school, but not to your specific major. Anyways, so I'm saying all that to say it does take some level of effort to get in here.
Yeah.
And rarely do you ever see someone where you're like, how the fuck did you get in here?
Yeah,
sometimes you do, but
they're impressive in some way. That's what you'll learn about UT kids is like, they're either just straight up intelligent, you're like, oh yeah, that's how you got in here, you're just intelligent. Or they're socially intelligent, so you're like, oh yeah, you probably knew exactly what kid to get like the answers from in high school, or like what teachers to suck up to. No, definitely not. Definitely not. But you like figure out what teachers to suck up to. Like there's the social ones. Honestly, those are really the only two I can really name where I'm like,
or
I
some
know
people
why
who
you
have fucking filthy rich parents too. I mean,
oh, you know what? Yeah, that doesn't come where I'm from. The two realities that I kind of stated is where I'm from. It's either one of those two, but I did forget a lot of the ones here are just like really here because they have really
contractual too. Like some people, like some companies have, and this other like A&M as well. A&M has like a whole like deal with like Saudi Arabia or Qatar or something where they just get students from there, and like UT as well. And it's like there's a lot of international students. It's amazing. Like I think the first time I ever felt like I was kind of in a place surrounded with people that are like myself was the day after orientation. I went to Zilker Park with one friend that I knew that I met at orientation, and then a couple friends that she knew, and I was talking to one of them, and he was telling me how he's from Saudi Arabia and how he was actually born in Canada but then lived in Venezuela, but then like all this like just pretty much like moved around a lot, and he's seen a lot, moved around a lot, and kind of telling me that made me realize that maybe like I'm not alone, because I mean I'm gonna be honest, like I did have like that imposter syndrome for a while. I mean pretty much like all my life where I always moved around so much to where it's like, man, like I'm not like anybody here. But and this is like coming from the bottom of my heart where when I say like UT Austin, I realized, man, like there's a lot of people like me, and some people could say that's a bad thing, like, oh man, I'm not special, but at the same time you're like, oh man, I'm not the only one, you know. It's kind of like relief in like both senses, but yeah, nonetheless, like this is where we live, and I just kind of wanted to mention that because I think we're in a very, very privileged and amazing place compared to like pretty much anywhere anyone. Like it's, I'm sure there's people that are better off than us in some way, but yeah, I think we're like very privileged to be where we are.
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, I guess from what we have recorded so far, you can get kind of an idea of how we speak, what we believe, how we present the ideas that we believe, how we met each other, how our relationship developed in the beginning. Obviously, there's a big chunk left out, and you know that's like for future episodes, because running down our entire experience as friends would just take like days probably of straight talking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we could leave it off like, we did not talk about this before. It's kind of just something we both wanted to do. We never talked about what are we going to talk about.
Yeah, it just flows.
But what are your goals for this moving forward? And two, like, what are the things you hope to like converse, or like things that people can kind of expect to see in the future? And it's completely random because we don't know each other's answers. It might be completely different. And if it's different, fuck it, we'll have episodes with both of what we want.
Yeah, but I mean, realistically, knowing you and knowing your thought process,
we want
like,
the same of most things. Like
same. Not in moments. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, definitely not.
But either way, my answer to that would be okay. So I have a YouTube channel and I have like 5 videos on that. And my goal, obviously, like, who doesn't like to be like a good YouTuber or whatever? So obviously, in the back of my head, like, if I could press a button to be like a successful YouTuber, sure, but like that wouldn't work because you actually have to work towards that. But I think a way I treat my vlogs is like it's like a piece of memory that I had, and in a way it's a little different than podcasts because with vlogs you have all this footage of what happened, and then you have a story and you build that story as like using the footage as like Lego blocks to make it into something you want it to be. And most of the time it's pretty accurate as to what actually happened. But when you look back at it, you're like, oh man, like, but in reality, it's slightly deviated from the reality of what actually happened. Whereas a podcast is like no cuts, well, except for the technical difficulties. So that's a very long way of saying I want this to be like a piece of memory. When I'm 30, 40, 50, I could be watching this. I'd be like, man, this dude had no idea what was coming for him.
No facts.
Like,
yeah.
You could just look at it and be like, man, like, and kind of capture your thoughts in a moment, because there's no other way of capturing your thoughts except for
memories.
Yeah, like you speak it into existence, you record that becomes a memory. You can go back and be like, this is how. And I think podcasts is a great way to do it because with vlogs,
especially with people like us.
Exactly. Yeah, like
people who talk,
people who are expressive with their thoughts
through vocal ways. Because a lot of people express their thoughts in a lot of other ways.
Yeah, like through actions or gifts or love, yeah. And I think Logan is definitely very gifted in the English department. Like, he is very expressive with what he thinks, what he says. And I did, like, definitely pick up a lot from him as far as that. Where I try to organize my thoughts and speak more clearly. I definitely like put my thoughts into a word more than I usually do. So the answer to that is I just want to capture the memory, put it out there. People want to watch it, like, amazing, go ahead. If not, like, I'm very indifferent about that. As far as what I want in the episodes, just talk about whatever. I mean, we were both busy people. We can talk about our weeks. We can talk about the trends that are happening. One podcast I love to watch is TMG with like Cody Kwandama.
Facts.
Sometimes like what they do, they go to the relationship advice Reddit and just like clown on someone, or not clown, just kind of laugh at it. I want to have guests on as well. Definitely hopefully get another mic. Hopefully better. I mean, if this thing goes somewhere, like, everything comes to effort. For the reference, like, it's 5-6 in the morning right now. Like,
just got out of a club.
Yeah, well, like, sorry for the cut. But we're just talking about how we were just at a club a couple of hours ago, and now we're just sitting here talking about God knows what. But that's kind of like my vision for the rest of the podcast. Bring guests on, capture these thoughtful things that we talk about, and then hopefully if it goes somewhere, that'd be awesome. Well, how about you though? Like, where do you see this podcast going? Like, is this episode ever gonna go out, or are you are we gonna be consistent with it? Like, are we gonna gather an audience? Where do you want it to go?
Honestly, yeah. Like, I feel like you're really good, like, at bringing a lot of thoughts out of me. Like, I feel like a lot of my thoughts are really good, but a lot of those thoughts don't exist until you talk, and you just kind of like brought up a lot of stuff that I wasn't even thinking about. But yeah, like, I mean, one of these days we have a lot of like friends and people who are like invested in anything we do, whether it's successful, not successful,
Trips.
What they're interested in, what they're not in. Like, I feel like our friends just have general interest because we show general interest in whatever they do. So yeah, having like a audience while we do our podcast could definitely be interested. Definitely guess, like, without a doubt. Because I feel like we know each other. Like
Yeah.
a lot of the thoughts that we'll express to each other is not gonna surprise. Like it might be
Yeah.
something new, but it's definitely not gonna like surprise. It's rare. So, you know, bringing other people can add a little bit more to that. Like I want to bring a lot of external media into the podcast, and whether that be pulling it up on our phones and talking about it, just verbally bringing it up and expanding on it, or putting that media edited into the podcast
video,
itself
Yeah.
and talked about. Yeah, like I really like that because it kind of gives like our perspective on things happening in the real world.
Yeah, we'll be like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, Jamie, pull it up. And then
Yeah.
I saw that video of that fucking guy eating a deer. Jamie, pull it up. And just like,
Yeah.
within 2 seconds, he's like, yeah, I got you right here. Exact same thing, and then he pulls it up.
Yeah, some shit like that.
I mean, yeah, those things, like, hopefully when we, like, for the record, if anyone understands, like, it's not technology, we got these 2 mics synced up. My camera has a 30-minute, it's a photography camera, it's a Canon Rebel TI. It has a video recording limit of 30 minutes. So every 30 minutes, when you see that cut, it's just like, it's been 30 minutes for one way or another.
Yeah, and we just like, we instinctively just decided to do this at 5 a.m. But there's like a little piece of equipment that you can buy that live streams the footage from your camera. You could go for hours.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten that, but like I said, we wanted to start now, so we're gonna start exactly what we have, and if it means that every 30-minute interval we're gonna have to say technical difficulties, so be it, because we wanted to start it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step to take is
Action.
like actually go out there, do it, you know.
Yeah.
Everybody can talk about, oh, I'm gonna do this. Okay, do it. Like, what's holding you back, you know?
Exactly.
But yeah, any final remarks? Anything else? Because it's been, it's 7 in the morning now.
Yeah. Nah, this is my brother right here, so regardless of where it goes, I don't care. I did this with him. I enjoy talking to him. I'll enjoy talking to him in our room or behind the camera.
I mean, yeah,
regardless.
we will talk. Like,
yeah, like it's gonna happen. It's like, are you
Right.
gonna record it and share what you see as special to the world, or keep it to yourselves? Like, you know.
Yeah, it really, and I think this might eventually end up happening where, like, let's say like Logan gets back from a long day of work or something happens where we're both in the room and we're talking. I'll be like, okay,
Let's
go
just
downstairs.
continue this. Yeah.
let's go downstairs.
The conversation we have definitely way bigger, but I mean,
This was kind of like an introductory, like surface level.
who we are.
I
don't want to talk about us as much as we've talked about each other in this podcast for the rest, but I felt like it was necessary to kind of give you at least an outline of why we're as close as we are.
Yeah, I mean, even at that, like, definitely a lot more, like, stuff that happened. And eventually, like, we'll talk about different trips.
Bits and
different-
pieces.
Yeah, bits and pieces. But, anyways, thank you guys for watching. If this goes on YouTube, like, subscribe.
Yeah, no,
Make sure to
subscribe.
smash that like button, guys.
Yeah.
But, yeah, peace out. See you on next episode. Alright.